Hello, I am Megan and welcome to Battle Royale with Cheese, the website you can get all of your TV and film news reviews and trailers. Firstly, apologies that I look absolutely awful. It is the hottest day of the year so far, so I do apologise for that. But I have just gone to see 28 Years Later. I have been really looking forward to this. When I started doing film reviews, my first ever film article was to do with this film. It was a news article to do with DannyBoyle wanting to make this film, and that article was released 10 years ago. So I've been waiting for this for a long time. I was really looking forward to this, and I went to go see it, and So 28 Years Later takes place 28 years after the initial outbreak of the rage virus. A small island has been cut off from the mainland UK. UK as a whole has been isolated from the rest of the world. It follows Spike, played by Alfie Williams, and his dad, played by Aaron Taylor-Johnson, as well as his mum, played by Jodie Comer. And it follows Spike's journey throughout this film. I don't really know how else I can do the plot synopsis, anymore. I apologise. It's really warm in this room, so I apologise that I might be spluttering a little bit, so apologies. But yeah, I can't really think of any other way to do the plot for this film without spoiling anything. So I will just say straight up, I am going to do a little spoiler section at the end of the video. I know this film has just come out, but there is a couple of things I want to talk about, specifically the ending and something else. But I'll do that right at the end. You'll get the usual spoiler image and the warnings. So just so you know, because there is a few things that I want to talk about that are spoilerish. I think this will divide people. I kind of came out of this film thinking, not really sure what to think of it. I don't overall like it. There are some things in this film that I do like, and then there are other stuff that I absolutely hated. But I think this is going to be a very divisive entry in the franchise. While DannyBoyle and AlexGarland are back as director and writer, John Murphy is not back as composer, and you can tell that. I'll get onto that in a minute, but you can absolutely tell that has changed. Let's go on to the positives first. I'm kind of all over the place because of the heat, but also I don't really know how to explain my feelings, so let's go with the positives first. I think the cast were fantastic. Aaron Taylor-Johnson plays Spike's dad, and I thought he was great. He's not in it as much as I thought he was going to be, but I think the screen time that he did have was great. He does not play the most nicest of people, but there's a reason for that. He kind of tries to say that he's a good fatherly figure to Spike, while in the background he's out partying with the rest of the community, and being a bit of a wild animal. Jodie Comer plays Spike's mum, and she was brilliant. She is a mum who, up until a certain point, you do find out what she has, but she is sick, she has memory issues, she is not quite there mentally a lot of the time, and it's obvious that she's not well. You do find out what she has, but I thought she played a difficult role really well, actually. I really, really liked her performance. But the one to definitely give a shout out to is Alfie Williams, who plays Spike. I thought he was fantastic. He pretty much has to carry the film, and he does a great job at it. He is brilliant. And I think also his journey was interesting, who realises he doesn't belong in the community that he was born in. There's a scene near the beginning of the film where there's a party scene and the music's getting louder, the noise is getting worse, he's getting overwhelmed. It's supposed to be overwhelming on purpose, but you realise that he's very different from that. And even Aaron Taylor-Johnson, who plays the father, he's sort of trying to big up his son and being like, yeah, he did this, this and this, and he's swearing and everything, and you realise that, Spike is much more of a caring person towards his mother compared to his father, who's a lot more, brute and man and, primal. he's very, very different. But I thought Alfie Williams did a fantastic job. I really, really enjoyed his performance in this. The other one I really liked was Ralph Fiennes. I'm not going to say who he played because that is actually a spoiler, but I really enjoyed his performance as well. I think the idea of the infected was interesting as well. So in this one, it's demonstrated that the virus has evolved. They've become a lot more of a society. There's a lot more societal roles, and there's a lot more different types of infected this time compared to just, oh, it's just a running one and that's it. There's a lot more different types now. Think like Left 4 Dead. Basically, I feel like Danny and Alex did sort of play Left 4 Dead for inspiration for this, but I thought that was really interesting at the same time. And the fact that the virus has evolved also makes sense biologically. So I really, really liked that. And of course, I've got to talk about The Infected as well. You know, it's a 28 blah blah later film. So I kind of have to talk about them. And there are a few interesting ideas in here to do with them. Again, can't talk about it yet, I apologise, but I thought there was a few interesting ideas in here that involved them. And my last positive is, for the most part, I really liked the cinematography. This was filmed on an iPhone 15, but if you've seen the photos, it was on a rig, like a giant rig set up and stuff. But I think that's still really interesting. I did really like the cinematography. I don't think it's going to land with everyone, but I thought it was really interesting for the most part, and this is where we're going to start getting into the negatives. There's some really weird editing choices in this film. So occasionally, especially in the first act, there's a few moments where some clips of the infected that's against like red lighting will come up of them like eating or running, and then for some reason the film will sometimes interject with like scenes of medieval battles. It doesn't go anywhere. I don't really know what the point of it was, and it did happen a few times in the first act and some of the second act. I thought that was a bit weird. I don't really know what it was trying to say, maybe like just the chaos of humanity, but it more felt like and came across like they had to fill the time up somehow, and they couldn't figure out how to do that. So that did feel a bit weird to me. So like I said earlier, I said that, you know, there's a few interesting ideas in here overall, as well as with The Infected. This feels like 2 or 3 films mashed together, and not very well. This is a very weird film in terms of its plot, and that's why I had problems sort of saying what the plot was at the start of this video, because there's so much going on, but in a way where it felt like the filmmakers didn't know what idea to go with for this film, so just put everything together and then realised, oh, we've still got to fill up like half an hour more. Okay, well, let's bring in the other idea. And it just felt very weird in that kind of sense. A lot of these ideas, I have just watched, I will admit, I have just watched a video review by Jeremy Johns, and he said, and I agree with him with this, he said that this feels like, oh, this film, it has a lot of great concepts but not good execution. And I completely agree. There are some things that I do like. The whole sequence with Ralph Fiennes, I really, really like. There's a whole section in a house where Aaron Taylor-Johnson and Alfie Williams have to hide from the infected. That was all great. There's a couple of other sequences that I really like as well. So it's not all bad, but it's just a bit messy, I think is the right word to use. And then just keeping on with the cinematography for the moment, for some reason, every time an infected was hit with Spike throughout the film has a bow and arrow, and every time the infected is hit with a bow and arrow, there's this weird like bullet time matrixy effect that just appears, or the screen will like freeze frame for a second and then continue on. That looked awful. It looked really bad. And I mentioned with 28 Days Later, if you remember, I was talking about the freeze frame at the end of the film, saying that looked outdated. This effect in 28 Years Later looks outdated. And, you know, this film has only just come out. It already looks outdated in that sense. This did not, you know, offer anything. There didn't seem to be any reason for it. I didn't really get it. So, and also it just didn't look very good, which is a shame. But I think that was the only sort of visual side of things. Those were kind of the only things I didn't really like about the film. There were some weird editing choices and filming choices. But I think visually, when they were just doing shots of like the landscapes and like the characters being chased by the infected or something, those were great. I thought those were really, really nice. And then lastly, the music score. So like I mentioned, it's not composed by John Murphy this time round. I hated the music score. Like, hated it. None of it works. Like, none of it works at all. It feels like... The music score feels like it was for a completely different film and doesn't work with anything that's going on. I absolutely hated it. I did not like it at all. It was awful, and it starts pretty much right from the get-go. I will say the opening scene was fantastic. It's in the trailer, but the opening scene was fantastic. I thought the music sort of worked there, but even then I was like, okay, so this is what we're going to have then, I guess. Yeah, I hated the music score. Last thing I want to talk about is actually not to do with the film. I will go into spoilers after this, but I'm just going to quickly make a note of my experience of watching this film. Some of you guys need to learn how to behave in a cinema. So, this is the worst cinema audience that I have had. Now, granted, it was only a group of, I think, 3 or 4 people. But yeah, they were constantly yelling at full volume. Yes, I'm going to use this opportunity to rant. My unwritten rule is this. During the ads and during the trailers, you can talk whatever. Don't care. Once the film starts, be quiet. Be quiet. You are not at home. You are in a public place with everyone else. Be quiet. And, you know, if the film gives you a reaction that's like a scare, or like a moment where you feel like you want to clap or laugh or whatever, go for it. But yeah, you're not at home. Please respect other people in the cinema and don't be noisy. They did end up getting kicked out because a lot of people complained, but yeah. Look, I'm just... I never talk about cinema behaviour before because I don't experience it too much. But yeah, I feel like I need to say something with this because I enjoy going to the cinema, but clearly other people enjoy it just to like mess around and treat it as if it's their living room, which is not. Okay, I've been the nagging person. Let's get on to spoilers. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to talk about before I got onto my big complaint. One of the ideas that I thought was interesting, and I didn't expect to see a scene like this in a 28 later film, is one of the rage victims is actually pregnant and ends up having a baby. Now, firstly, I didn't expect to see the pregnancy scene and childbirth scene of a rage virus victim. That was new. But I think from that, the idea was interesting of a rage virus victim actually being pregnant and what would the baby be like from that point. I wish they had gone more into that rather than the baby gets delivered back to Spike's home village and that's kind of it. I think it would be interesting to follow that along and see where it goes, because I think that could be really interesting. And then, yeah, so the ending, Spike doesn't return home at the end. It cuts to, there's a point where he decides to return home, his mother dies essentially, and he's told to return home. You know, you came here, you got what you came here for, which was answers to his mother's sickness. It cuts to 28 days later, and he's still out there. So he went to the home village to drop off the baby, and then went back to the mainland to live and to survive there more. He says he feels more feels more free there, which again, this is what I was talking about when I said, oh, his story arc and his journey actually makes sense. He feels like he doesn't belong in the village. He belongs more out free, which made sense to me. What I wish had happened is there's a point where he's hunting one of the infected, manages it, but that brings on a whole other crowd of infected. He runs off, gets to a dead end, and I wish the film had just cut there. So you don't know if he survived or not. That's it. He finds a dead end, turns around, there's like 5 or 6 infected behind him. That's it, cut to black. What actually happens... What actually happens... Okay. I will describe this as best as I can. So what actually happens is a group of ninja Christians beat up the infected and chop their heads off with the backing of heavy rock music, and then their leader, who is called Jimmy, looks like Jimmy Savile, asks this 12-year-old boy to join them, and then it cuts to black. I'm not making any of this up, by the way. I wish I was, but I'm not. I don't understand why this was the ending. It felt like a parody of the films. It felt like a parody of the whole trilogy. It did not work. It was awful. Me and the guy next to me at the end of the film just looked at each other and just went, what? What was that about? But I also think it was a really bad decision to have someone look like Jimmy Savile and be called Jimmy and then have that interaction with the kid. I don't think that was a good idea. That was a really bad idea. Yeah. The ending was, look, I'm going to drop my professionalism. The ending was shit. The ending was really bad. Like I said, if they had ended it with, okay, he's at a dead end, he has his bow and arrow by this point, he's figured out how to actually aim for headshots now, he's gotten braver and can actually do that. Instead of, at the beginning of the film, he was going, oh, I can't do it, I can't kill them, I can't do it, and he was constantly missing. He's grown now. So I think it would have been more interesting for him to hit that dead end, turn around, see them, get his bow and arrow, ready, and then it cut to black. I think that would have been way more interesting. But yeah, that's not the ending we got. I'm going to imagine that's the ending we got, because I think it's better. There was a few interesting ideas in here. I don't think all of them were executed very well, and the ending was stupid. I know that's not a good criticism, but... So I think this is definitely going to divide people. I don't know if I'll ever watch this full film again, but there's definitely sequences that I would like to rewatch, because there were sequences that I actually did legitimately like. But as a whole, I've waited 10 years for this. So I feel a bit stupid. I think this is also a lesson in overhype, because I will admit I have overhyped this for myself. So this is also a lesson to take for me. Don't overhype stuff. Go in with mid expectations in future. But yeah, this was my review on 28 Years Later. I was Megan. This is BRWC. See you soon.